Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday, October 19, 2017 College Council meeting. We have a quorum and we can get started. We have some new members today. We will welcome them. We have Ms. Lenora Rogas, who now is an official member of this council.
Yeah.
Right? You are part also of the Executive Committee of the Senate. Ms. Kathy Kotaras, also a new member to this committee, or executive member of the Senate. And everybody else is, I guess, an old member.
Or old timers.
Or simply old.
Old timer.
Personally.
Okay. An old timer? All right. Well, if you need to know anything about this council, Ms. Lenora and Ms. Kotaras, you can ask any of the old timers. They'll tell you how this system works. All right. Okay. Welcome again, and thank you again for being here this morning. As you know, we have the what's that called? The Great Shakeout at 10:19, and we will try as far as possible to see if we can be done by maybe 10:10 or so that everybody can go out and get prepared for the great meeting at 10:19. Public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have any comment? No? Okay. All right. Review and approval of meeting notes from September 21, 2017. We all had an opportunity to review those meeting notes. And do we hear a motion to approve?
I call the motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Second. Discussion, comments, suggestions, changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? All right, so one abstention. Ms. Rogax wasn't here, so. All right, so the meeting notes have been approved. Information item, Superintendent President's update. So let me give you a brief update. As you know, the college is very proud right now. We are eligible to apply for the 2019 Aspen Award, and again, we made it in the top 150. Not many colleges from California. I think there are only 10 colleges from California that have made the cut. When you think of the state of Oregon, only one school from the whole state of Oregon made the cut. I mean, that's important to know that we are doing very, very well in that regard. And we do hope that we will continue our progress in bridging the achievement gap, which it does seem to me looks like the most important criterion in getting into the top 150 and the top 10 and maybe even eventually winning the award. I mean, that's a very important thing. Diversity, bridging the achievement gap, and moving students to get their degree faster and earning a decent living. Some of the other things that you need to know from the athletics division, as you know, our football team seems to be doing very well right now. We've won 3 in a row and looking forward to a 4th win this Saturday. Our baseball coach was named Men's Coach of the Year by the South Coast Conference. This is a first for Pasadena City College. We've never had any of our men's coaches named Man of the Year. You also know that because we've done so well in the associate degrees for transfer, once more we are being recognized by the state. Last year, as you know, several of us went to Sacramento to be recognized. You were part of the team, Dr. Olivo.
Yes.
Remember, right? And I do believe that, Lenora, were you with us?
No, I wasn't.
Who went with the Valerie? Valerie went, right?
But Dolores Huerta was there.
Yes,
Great.
yes,
Yeah.
right. And so we will be recognized again as one of the top producers of associate degrees for transfer, and this time it's going to be in Los Angeles, so we can take a bigger crowd this time. The College Promise will still pay for 4 of us to go there, but I don't think we'll be claiming anything. I mean, we can all drive to the Los Angeles City College. We may even take a college van for that. With that Kevin De Leon, the Speaker of the House, and Janet Napolitano, President of the UC system, will be there, as well as Chancellor Eloy Oakley will be there as we get recognized. We seem to be doing all right with enrollment. I think we've stabilized that now. Dr. Judy, we okay with that now? There are no more fluctuations for this semester.
Well, we're actually, so I was going to report that on my report, but I can tell you.
Why don't we switch over to your report?
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay, so we'll do that, and I'll start with enrollments. Our enrollments have been going up a little bit over the last couple of weeks because of, we have a large number of sections that start next Monday. And so we've seen an increase in enrollment, and we've also seen an increase in non-credit. Unfortunately, those increases are not surpassing what we saw last fall. So it's helping in regard to this, but we're still, our numbers are still considerably less as compared to last fall. You know, at this point, I don't think we'll make up those enrollments in this fall. I actually am going to be discussing with the deans this week about the possibility of adding another set of courses that would be 6-week courses at the end of fall, so that we could try to capture some of those enrollments. But at this point on the credit side, we are down over 6,000 enrollments as compared to last fall, and so we won't make that amount up in the last
That's
weeks of this.
head count, seats.
No,
that's
those are seats.
Seats.
Those are seats, right. But the average is about 0.1 FTS per enrollment.
Right.
And so that's, it's probably a little over 600
About
FTS
600,
that
right.
we will not generate this fall as compared to last fall. In non-credit, we're about 2,500 less in enrollments than we were last fall. And those don't generate 0.1 per enrollment, so that's probably closer to about 0.5 or 0.6, but so that's another 100 to 150 FTS that we're not generating there. So.
Now, to add to what Dr. Judy is saying, we are looking at asking the foundation, now that the governor has signed the bill making the first-year community colleges free in California, we will be working with the foundation and to see if we can make an announcement as early as December. Something very simple, right? What we're looking at is that will probably boost our enrollment is for any resident of this district that graduated from one of the 16 high schools of this district, right? You must have graduated from one of the 16 high schools of this district. You must have a minimum of 30 degrees, 30 credits that are degree applicable. If they're not degree applicable, they don't count, right? I know that, I mean, you can beat that to death and say, well, we need to look at this, that, but no, you have to have a start at some point, right? So, graduating from any of the 16 high schools of this district, right, have a minimum of 30 degree applicable credits. That is, if you've taken credits that are not degree applicable, they won't count, okay? And if you are at PCC and you make the commitment that you will take a minimum of 24 units in 1 year, that is at least 12 units per semester, we will cover that second year for you. You can take all 30 units if you want. You can take all 30 units if you want in that year. But you have to take at least 12 units. We will cover that for you. And that's what we are working with the foundation for, to see if we can, and we've asked, get a price tag on that to see if it is something that we can do. And if it is within our possibility, if we can do that, right, we will go forward the first week of December and we will make that announcement. Okay? So we hope that we'll get plan. It is not the perfect plan, but this is going to be a start. Right? And then we'll assess it, and then we will work on it in the future. Right? So We discussed that at our executive staff meeting on Tuesday morning, and so we're looking at that right now. What do you think of it? Any feedback, any comment from anybody in the room? Yes, sir.
Has the foundation yet been drawn into this conversation?
Well, the foundation was part of that
Okay.
conversation. The executive director of the foundation was part of that conversation. So we're putting a price tag on it now to see. Yes, sir.
Would it be like our current problem just fall and spring, or would it include winter as well?
It would be just the two main terms, fall and spring. You have to draw a line somewhere and then figure out later.
Mhm.
It would just be the two principal terms, fall and spring. Yeah. It may not help us for this year, but anything else? Any other comment from anybody?
The number of high schools that you're mentioning, are you thinking that we're just including publics? or
No,
are
it's
you-
public and private.
Public and
There are
private,
16 of them, right?
I think there's more than that.
26.
Yeah.
26.
That's why.
13 private, 30
That's
public,
why.
yeah, 26, yeah.
I just put PACCD on mine.
No, it's 26, 26 high schools.
Any of the high schools with.
Yes, you have to be any of the 26 high schools, and if you are from El Monte, you have to be at Arroyo and Rosemead. Those are the two high schools from El Monte that are part of our district.
And recent high school graduation?
No, it doesn't matter.
Good, so now
It
it
doesn't
won't
matter.
matter.
You could have graduated in 1922.
Right, excellent.
All right, it doesn't matter when you graduated. 1915 you could have graduated. And, yeah.
1915 or 2015? Okay. never
No,
mind.
1915. You can be a 100-year-old person.
He's picking on me again.
Okay, so that's what we're looking at. I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to we'll do it, but we're putting a price tag on it to see whether we can afford it or not. Because now we're opening it to everybody.
Yes,
Our promise, that the way we had it, right, the Pasadena Promise was just for restarting. Now you have to graduate and come straight here.
Right,
All right. Now because those students are being taken care of,
right.
all right, and our intention is to reduce the time to degree and to give other students, right, who've completed their first year, give them an opportunity to get their whole degree for free.
Tuition.
Will still require financial aid application?
Yeah,
Everything
yeah,
is the same.
so-
Nothing changed. Everything is the same.
So that's my only concern at this point, Dr. Verdian, is it could potentially be funding students that don't have a financial need.
It doesn't matter.
And one of the things that we've often said when we were designing pathways
Yes.
is that we recognize students need more than just funding. They need support.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I think we have, I like what you
Right.
said, it's not perfect, we need to start
Mhm.
somewhere,
Right.
assess and then change.
Right.
But I do know the Campaign for College Opportunity, for example, they're hosting an event on October 30th
Mhm.
called LA County Promises That Count. And they're gonna be talking about these
Yeah.
issues to
Yeah.
help us all figure out how do we provide promise programs that provide substantial support
Mhm.
for students to help them complete.
We will do something that is very objective and very simple. When you start getting into the other corollary requirements to go to school and so on, you're getting into very subjective things, which may or may not be validated or proven to be true. There are too many variables involved. So we are going to keep it simple, right? And that will make it happen. And then we can tweak it as we go along. But you have to have a start at some point. If you want to have the perfect plan, you will never get anything
Yeah,
done.
and I'm not that kind
Right?
of
We will
person.
not never get anything done. We have to be able to start something.
Yeah.
You have to be able to start something and then you build around it. So this is what this is what we're going to be doing.
I think the concern that Dr. Lee was expressing is that we have limited resources, and so we want to expend them wisely on the students who will benefit from them most. And
Yes.
so I do see some concern in expending those limited resources on students who may not need them. We have very wealthy private schools in our district,
Yes.
and if we're funding students who've been paying $16,000, $20,000 a year for private school tuition,
Mhm.
if we're covering their tuition fees, I do think that could be.
It's easy for us to make the statements we're making right now.
Uh-huh.
But when you will look at it directly, when you look at the students that will be benefiting from that,
Mhm.
that's the group that is in the gray area
Uh-huh.
where you are in between zones where $1 more
Right.
on your tax return is depriving you of that free tuition.
Right. No, I understand
You know? So that's the group that is going to be benefiting the most from that. Okay. And that's the intent of it.
Right.
Because I mean, the statement that you made right now is correct. But at the same time, we keep saying those things. Right? But when we really look at it, it is not really the case. Matt.
Yeah, the commitment to the 24 units, would that be for a period of time, like within a year?
It's just those 2 semesters. You have to take a minimum of 12 units, and there must be a commitment to take both. Otherwise, it'll make you pay that money back. Alright? And that will reduce the time to degree. Right? And we are doing the other things as well at the college. You know, we have pathways where we are providing students with all kinds of support. We have increased you have the learning assistance centers, right? Okay. And we're still continuing the PASS, what's it called? Not Metro.
UPass.
The UPass. We're still continuing the UPass, right? We're still subsidizing all that, right? We have the food pantry, which is working very hard, okay? There is a point where you have to stop. We have to you have to stop at some point. I mean, we're going toward e-books right now. We're going the OER. So we will be defeating our own purpose. If we were to tell students, well, we're going to give you money to buy books now, when we are encouraging our faculty to go towards the open educational resources. So, and we're putting money in that. We got the grant, all right? And you're working on that. I mean, we have a whole group of faculty working on that. So, everything else being equal, we want to make that kind of statement. So, all right. And also, one more thing that I would add is, Dr. Julie will probably mention that as well, is, you know, the faculty hiring committee is meeting, right, to prioritize the various requests from all the division, right? And I'll let Dr. Julie tell you how many we will be hiring this year.
I don't need to do my report, you finished it for me.
Finish it.
So the last thing I was gonna mention is that we are I'll say, we're not at the beginning, we're a little bit into the faculty hiring prioritization process, and so the faculty committee that prioritizes them has received the packets on the 56 applicants for those, and they will be working hard these next 2 weeks to prioritize. The deans will also be looking at them and looking at prioritization from the dean's perspective. And then obviously a list will be given to the president. I don't have the exact date, but it's in a few weeks, so that we can get this wrapped up and actually fly these positions before we leave for the winter holiday, so that we can then start our hiring process when faculty get back in the spring. We will be going after 20 full-time positions. That number was determined just yesterday. Myself working with Dr. Storti and Dr. Verdi and Crystal, looking at our fawn for the fall 18 semester and looking at the number of separations we've had due to retirements, and those that we expect between now and March. That 20 appears to be a good number, and so.
Does that include the 1-year temps from last year due to the?
Yes. So basically, that number was looking at our fawn, looking at the number of full-time faculty we currently have, subtracting out any temporary positions that we had for this year. So we are intending to replace those, obviously, and then also looking at separations that have occurred. At the end of last year, there were a number of retirements that actually went into effect June 30th, but we could count them toward our fawn for this year because their letters were submitted late But so those are also being added in.
So in terms of the message to my committee, do they need to include the one-year temps from last year in their 20 that they rank?
No,
or
it's
are
my
those
under-
guaranteed and then we rank 20 new ones?
It's my understanding that the 3 failed attempts are guaranteed.
So they would have to rank only 17, so you have
Right.
1, 2, 3 has all
Yeah,
have already been
one,
determined.
1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, and 3 includes accounting, business, math, and biology. Those are already in the approved.
So they would have to add
list.
only 17
So
more.
we have
just
17.
17 more. That's
In all, we're at 20.
That's still
We
part
take
of
out the 3 from
I
last year.
just need to know if it's 23 or 17.
No, 17. 17.
17, and there's only 53 positions that they have to look at. If we
Right.
subtract those 3, it's already being prioritized. Because those 3 are on the list. So. Yeah, and that would be the end of my report. Unless you
Well,
have
this is
something
going to be
else.
interesting because it will be some kind of an internecine warfare.
What?
53 positions, 17 only will be the lucky ones.
It's okay.
When there are many positions, people are happy because it's easy to rank.
20 is more than the number I was floating around.
That's more than what? Oh, well, thank you.
I was telling people 5.
5? Wow, well, thank you very much, Dr. Foster. We thank you very much for that.
Save
Huh?
all my strategy.
So now, yeah.
Good strategy.
Thank you. All right. All right. That's it.
That's all.
Student affairs, Dr. Oliver.
I just wanted to thank our behavioral intervention team for gathering on Monday. They meet every other week, and so they designed 3 events. One was held yesterday for our student who, our former student who took his life by suicide. So that included personal counseling, health and wellness, student life. And we also had an event from the Veterans Resource Center that they had previously scheduled because it is Suicide Prevention and Mental Health Awareness Month. That was on Tuesday. And the next opportunity that I invite all of you to participate in is November 3rd. We have suicide prevention training. We had 50 seats available, but it is being held in Krebling Lounge. So we just open it up until the room is filled. And we'll provide lunch for everybody. So please get the word out about that. And then Kathy Kataris was gracious enough to let me know that a woman from Pasadena contacted you to let you know about a walk on November 4th, right? So if you all would read Alex Belkahide's email to the campus, the information about the walk in the city of Pasadena on Saturday, November 4th is in there. I also wanted to mention that Dr. Foster has been working with Great Minds in STEM and also Melba Alvarez and Mesa. And how many students are participating this week in the
I
conference?
think Melba has 35, and we have the GPS STEM grant just has about that many too. So 70, 50 to 70.
So 70 students of ours are down the street at the Pasadena Convention Center meeting folks from NASA. Last time we took students, they met astronauts. And this Saturday, we have one of our alumni, Adriana Ocampo. She will be honored at the Great Minds in STEM conference, and we arranged for a private reception for our students and for anybody from campus. I have my high school reunion, so I'm gonna go for a little bit. It's like 25 years or a little bit more than that. It's a special one, it should go.
Well, you knocked out, it's not too far, you're just in San Bernardino, right?
It's in Hemet.
Oh, Hemet, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's another hour and a half, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Jaira and Antonio have been instrumental in this too. So they're on behalf of the Career Center. They've been providing workshops and
Right.
support for the students. So they're there now as well.
Thank you. Today we have an event organized by Dr. Maris Tamayo called Life After DACA. That's at noon. Please let students know. I have around 15 faculty and staff who have volunteered to form a community of practice around former incarcerated students. So it's really awesome. And then around 10 faculty have responded to the Black Minds Matter online course, which is a 6-week course offered online from Dr. J. Luke Wood at San Diego State University. He's a faculty member. It so far has 10,000 people registered across the United States. And so we are an official rebroadcast site, and Dr. Matas Tamayo has sent information out about when you all can come together, which the first one is on next Wednesday, in Creveling Lounge. Free lunch, and we will simply be reviewing the material that had already occurred the week before in the course.
What time?
That's okay. I sent out the
Okay, yeah,
email.
I'll find out.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Well, I was concerned because it's live broadcast, but I asked Dr. Matas Tamayo about it, and she believes that if we register, that we should be able to get a recording of it. So if
Yes.
either of those times works, we could still watch it at our convenience.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah. Roger Marhine had also asked me the
Uh-huh.
same question. And we have many faculty who are very interested in this topic, so it's really a great thing. And then finally, we have 3 additional funding sources that came to us from the Chancellor's Office, which is really great for students. One is called a full-time completion grant, which requires that students enroll in 15 units per term and have a comprehensive ed plan on file. They can get up to $1,500 per semester, and we'll receive the money starting November 1st, so we'll start awarding that at that point. And we're working closely with counseling to make sure students have the ability to get their comprehensive ed plan. We also received $125,000 for an undocumented student emergency fund. And we will be sending the campus the criteria and process for students to access those funds, also in November 1st. And then we received $56,000 to fund our food pantry from the Chancellor's Office.
Cynthia,
Yes.
what does that 125,000 look like on the basis of your assessment of need? Now, you know, how
Yeah.
do you project that going?
We have set some criteria, preliminary criteria. I have gathered a group of folks to do that. And basically, they're leaving it up to a local decision on how to define emergency. But they do give suggestions. So if students pay the $495 to renew their DACA or extend their DACA, then that could be money that was displaced from paying other bills.
Sure.
So then that could be considered an emergency, and we could reimburse them for those $495.
I guess I was more specifically asking, what does that pot really get you? You know, in terms of the
We have
need that we might
1,100
demonstrate.
undocumented students,
Yeah.
so we thought about, should we just distribute the 125 equally, but it
Yeah.
truly is an emergency fund, so we're gonna have students describe what emergency they have and then have a group determine if they should get the money. And we're gonna follow the process that we use now, which is Dr. Carol Brown meets with students who submit an application for emergency funding, and she does an intake process to determine if they should get that.
Are we going to communicate the existence of the funds to the students in particular, or advertise campus-wide? Or?
Both.
Uh-huh.
But we're gonna do mass texting to the students, and we're also gonna advertise it across campus.
All right, well, thank you very much, Dr. Shorty.
Yes, Dr. Birdie, and I'd like to provide an update on a few key initiatives that are underway in business and administrative services. First, we've had several discussions about establishing an irrevocable trust to oversee funds set aside for our other post-employment benefit liability. And last night at the board meeting, the board authorized us to do an RFQ for management firms who provide specific services in that area. So the intent is to have a firm selected and in place by the end of this calendar year. So by December 31st, we'd like to have a firm hired. And just as a reminder, what this does, it allows us to invest our funds in higher earning investments. Currently, we're limited as far as funds set aside can only be invested with the county, and the rate of return on county investments is at best 1%. So if we use a management firm to manage those funds for us, in a safe manner, we can anticipate returns in the neighborhood of 5 up to maybe 10%. And what that does, it reduces the amount of draw on our general fund, so our general fund can be used for more specific needs of the campus. Another area I wanted to provide an update on is Measure P. Currently, we have about $6 million of Measure P funds left, and we're actively moving forward with several projects and anticipate utilizing majority, if not all of the funds by the end of this fiscal year. So by June 30th, we plan to have all of the projects completed. U building, currently in the initial planning phase with our architects that we've hired, GKK. So the planning that we're working on is working with the Chancellor's office to see if there's any type of flexibility in the plans that have already been submitted to the state. So this is an emergency project, and how emergency projects are funded by the state, it's based on the initial project proposal, the final project proposal, the IPP and the FPP that are initially submitted to the state. Those plans were submitted 5 years ago. The state approved them, but because it's an emergency project, we're locked into completing the project as stated in those plans. So
There goes your new lab, Dr. Foster,
Right.
that you were hoping to have.
Right, my lounge.
No, your lab, your new lab. Yeah.
But together with GKK, I'm working with the Chancellor's office and just submitting arguments, why we need to change what was submitted. Not changes in scope, because if we change the scope, our funding will be withdrawn and we'll lose the project altogether. But we just want some type of flexibility to improve the structure and provide the opportunity for additional input in the design of the U building.
What's your gut?
Maybe 35% chance that we'll be successful in getting that flexibility. 35 to 40%.
So you have to put a positive twist on it. Alright? The positive twist is this. If that building was earthquake safe, okay, you would not be building a new one. You would not be raising it. So you would have to deal with it the way it was. So just think of it like that. Alright? The building was fine. There's nothing wrong with the building. So you're just getting a building that will come there, that will replace this one that's exactly as this one is. Right? That's the positive twist on it.
That's what it is, yeah.
Right? Because nothing much you can do, because we submitted the plan 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Alright. That's what we said the blood building would be. And now the state said, well, that's what you submitted, that's what you would live with.
Yeah, everything's positive.
Right.
We will get a new building.
We'll get a new building, you know.
We're trying to extend the benefit. State funding, looks like we're going to get state funding for the E-building seismic improvements to the tune of $12 to $15 million. So I'm currently working with the Chancellor's office to secure that funding. From a fiscal standpoint, the board approved our annual 311 report last night. The 311 report includes our actual financial results for last year, our budgeted amount, our projected amount for 2017, and all of that is already, I've provided updates to this group on all of those areas, but it also includes an analysis of our compliance with the 50% law. So as everyone knows, we're required to spend at least 50% of our general fund dollars on instructional purposes. And our district last year came well above that, coming in 54.54%. So 54.54% of our general fund was spent on direct instructional expenditures. And that's, that just demonstrates the college's commitment to providing quality instruction to our student body. And also, just a final note that we're working with our external auditors right now to complete the external audit for our 2016-17 financial results.
All right. Ms. Rogak's accreditation, standing committee report.
So we didn't do a report out last year, and so this will sort of serve that purpose for this year. Can you advance the next slide, Chris? Thanks. Just to update everybody on the membership, we currently are at 18 members. We actually have room for, technically according to our AP, 5 more members. Crystal Colors, of course, is our ALO, became ALO in fall of 2017. We do have seats available for 4 representatives from associated students, and we're looking forward to their participation on the committee as the semester calms down and everybody falls into a little bit more of a rhythm. And all of our members, meeting times, agendas, minutes are posted on the accreditation standing committee website. So they're all accessible there if anybody is interested in what we do at each meeting. For the midterm report, that's our primary responsibility for this first half of the fall semester. The ACCJC has slightly altered guidelines for the midterm report, and so we're writing a report that tries as best as we can to make sure that we are committing ourselves to those new guidelines. That includes reporting out on all of our actionable improvement items that were identified in our self-evaluation study back in 2014. We no longer have to do extensive responses to meet the standards because those were addressed in the follow-up report and we were successful in all of those. And so there's much more emphasis, according to the ACCJC guidelines, on responding to the recommendations for improvement upon the standards rather than meeting the standards. And then the data analysis section, which covers 3 years worth of data. Our report, we have 47 actionable improvement items that we identified in the 2014 self-evaluation study. That is a lot of AIPs. I have yet to read a report with that many actionable improvement items. So much of our report is taken up with just dealing with those and the evidence for those. Ideally, in our next ICER, we'll be a little bit more strategic about what we identify as needing improvement. Probably some larger goals.
We will be really in trouble if we have 47
Yeah.
areas in need of improvement.
A lot of those AIPs overlapped with recommendations,
Yeah.
and so a lot of them were sort of resolved in the process of meeting the recommendations. So that's a good thing in terms of the writing of the report. I made it a little bit less burdensome, but we'll try to be more strategic about it in the future. We have a brief update on recommendations to meet the standards, just because there were some areas in which the visiting team identified, yeah, you meet the standard, but this could still be improved. And so we talked very briefly about those areas where they said you can still improve in this. But most of that section was very much devoted to the recommendation for improvement, and Dr. Oliva did a fabulous job in making sure that everything is not only fully in compliance with the standards, but exceeding, I think, what the ACCJC was looking for. The data analysis section is related to 2013-14, and then 14-15, and 15-16. Those are the 3 years that we are analyzing. We are analyzing completion rates, certificate rates, degrees, a whole host of things, as well as the fiscal aspect that is reported annually. Where we were able to do so, where we currently have the data, we are analyzing as well data from the 2016-17 year. And that's largely success rates, completion rates that we're looking at in that section. The approval process is underway. We have an administrative procedure that governs the approval process for all reports related to accreditation. Basically, very quickly, that stipulates that the Accreditation Standing Committee approves the reports. It's the final approval body before the report is then submitted via the ALO to the superintendent, president, and college council. Before the Accreditation Standing Committee does its final approval, we approve the draft to be sent out for the shared governance approval process, and that's already occurred. We had 3 meetings devoted to approving this report line by line. It was excruciating. It's now been sent to Academic Senate is having its first read of the report on October 23rd and the second read on November 6th. Ideally, it gets through in 2 reads. If not, we have a little bit of extra time to make sure that we can have a 3rd read if necessary. It's going through Classified Senate on November 1st and November 15th. It's going to Executive Committee on Monday, along with Academic Senate. And it's being sent to Management Association today. And then for the associated students, our meeting times with them are to be determined still.
Well, you got Kylie right there. Kylie can
Yeah, I actually
determine
talked to
that with
Crystal
you.
Cross about it last weekend. Not this Friday, not next Friday, but the Friday after.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're looking at first,
I
second
believe it's
Friday,
November
November?
3rd.
November 3rd?
Was it November 3rd?
I think that's what you told me last time.
Okay.
We'll confirm that. It's
Yeah.
like the first
I'll send
Friday
you
in
guys an
November.
email.
So you meet on Fridays?
From 10:15 to 12.
Wonderful. Okay, so November 3rd. And then Hopefully, it goes through that approval process very well, and our final approval in the Accreditation Standing Committee should be on December 12th, so that it can be delivered to College Council for our last meeting in the fall. Once we approve this as a body, then Dr. Verdian, we've checked and made sure that the January 17th meeting, and there are 2 meetings in February, but we know one of those
Right.
maybe not
Right.
a business
No
meeting.
problem. Right.
And then we submit this bad boy on March 15th.
Bad
And then we
boy.
can move on. We can move on to other things.
Okay.
Yeah, when you were talking about that AIP, that something came to my mind. I mean, very often when you're interviewing for a job, you get a question like, so what are some of your weaknesses? And you know how you answer that question. The more weaknesses you bring forward, the person interviewing says, why should I hire that person with all those weaknesses?
Luckily, we resolved them. Oh, so we are fabulous now. Our next report to be reviewed, and this will happen on our October 24th meeting, is the first draft of our Rosemead substantive change proposal.
Right.
This could not be submitted while we were on probation. So even though we shifted over to 50% GE offerings and so forth on the Rosemead campus a while back, we couldn't submit the report a while back. So we have 2 opportunities coming up in spring to submit the report, February and May. And it's really a matter of how quickly the approval process goes in the shared governance bodies.
But regardless of whatever we do, that substantive change needs to be submitted and accepted by ACCJC before we start working on the next self-study.
Right.
Because otherwise that will be a finding against the college.
Yeah, this 2018 spring deadline is non-negotiable. We have to
Right.
get it through the process
Right.
within this academic year. The hang-up about this is the ACCJC sub-change manual is currently under revision, so when you go to their webpage, it says nothing, it says it's under revision. So we're going to get the report written as much as possible through the bodies, and then we may have to make some changes
Right.
depending on what
Right.
their revised manual says by December or January, whenever they come out with it. Next slide, please. Thank you. The other major thing that we've been working on so far, and this is sort of left over from spring, is the accreditation education campaign. This is actually required according to our administrative procedure. We have to have campus-wide educational activities related to accreditation, largely to avoid misunderstandings about what a site visit, for example, is used for, or what an ICER, a self-evaluation study, is used for. We have already started on some of this. We're working with the Office of Strategic Communications and Marketing on an accreditation video. Some of that production is already underway. For parts of the video that are a little bit more technical, we are in the script writing process, and I'll be presenting a first draft of the script to the Accreditation Standing Committee in November. And hopefully we can get that video produced this academic year. There's been discussion in the committee of the venue through which the education campaign will take place, Senate presentations, maybe Flex Day, if we can come up with something really amazing that the faculty will love, and that classified will love, forums. So we'll figure out what we can come up with that's useful for different bodies. Ideally, we want to have the education campaign started by spring of 2018, so it's well in advance of the self-study. And then there's just one last slide. The other major project that we're undertaking is initiating a discussion about institutional student learning outcomes. Currently, we have something called general education outcomes. Those are not the same thing as institutional student learning outcomes. This was of concern, particularly because we are required to report how many institutional student learning outcomes we are assessing every year. So we've been using the GEOs for that number rather than ISLOs. Why doesn't a GEO work for this purpose as well as we would like it to? Well, there are certain areas that a GEO doesn't cover. A general education outcome, for example, may not cover the student learning objectives that student services come up with. So we want something that's more inclusive of all the different groups that are responsible for learning among our student population.
Now, an ISLO would be something like, what does a graduate of PCC look like compared to a graduate of Glendale Community College?
Absolutely, and a lot of the smaller universities or colleges, the way they test this is once a student is graduated and is out in the workforce, they actually go and poll the employers
Right.
Right? That'd be a little bit cumbersome for an institution of our magnitude, but certainly there's some really values-driven things that we can do. And so we're starting a much broader campus-wide discussion of what the ISLOs would look like. The Learning Assessment Committee, Academic Senate, and Student Success Committee are spearheading communication with the campus. We may need to end up forming a shared governance work group to work on this so that we know that everybody is represented in whatever we come up with at the end. And that is what we're working on. Thank you.
All right, questions for Lenora? All right.
I just want to thank Lenora for her work.
Yay.
Thank you.
She's actually done an outstanding job on the report, and she's a pleasure to work with, and she's handled the standing committee really well, so thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I've been looking at the Association of American Colleges and Universities. They have a value rubric. And, you know, things like inquiry and analysis, creative thinking, quantitative literacy, teamwork, they're a part of it. And I think those would be some, you know, a good resource to utilize in your discussions.
Wonderful. Thank you. Do you mind sending me that?
Valerie's extremely familiar with them, by the way.
There we go. All right.
Use her as a resource.
Yeah, we talked about that.
All
Yeah,
right.
we looked, Rocky brought up the strong workforce stuff too, and it overlaps.
Okay.
And so we even talked about calling them learning values rather than outcomes, since that seems to be
There's a
a
stigma with that
dirty word.
Yeah.
And, you know, I will say that using an equity lens, Estella Ben-Simon from USC Center for Urban Ed and her team, they did a research study to make sure that these are applicable to all students, and they are.
That's what would differentiate our graduates from Glendale or Citrus.
Yes.
Ours have gone through that equity lens,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that's what you do. I mean, otherwise, I mean, you're learning exactly the same thing.
Right.
That's what an institutional learning outcome is. What is it that you are doing here that makes your institution different
Yes.
from what the students are getting in another institution? And so, all right. New items, discussion and possible action, BP 4102, AP 4102, Career and Technical Education Programs, Senate. Dr. Foster?
Actually, Terry's going to
Yeah,
address it.
actually, if I could speak on this first. I had actually asked the College Council table both the BP 4102, AP 4102, and also AP 4103,
Okay.
because these were updated a while back, and there have been some changes that have occurred
Okay.
that really require that these be looked at again and updated.
Okay, motion to table. Anyone move? All right, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so those two items are being tabled.
I do have a question.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am?
So what's the process for communicating the updates to the committee? We do have a CTE committee, and we have a new chair, Barbara Kissel. Are you gonna meet with her to discuss
Yeah, I can do
those?
that.
Okay.
And so I was gonna talk to you about CTE committee and the involvement we need that committee to be doing, and so I'll have a conversation with you and Senate Exec about some of that. And I can update you on what some of the concerns are, but then I'll ask her basically for the CTE committee to take the lead on that.
All right.
And I can just tell you that one of the changes that so why also the issue with the work experience is because both of those board policies call out economic and workforce development in ways that aren't appropriate with the changes that we're making, because that's being split away from the instructional CTE. And so where it refers to economic and workforce development in both
Let's just bring that up at some other point, yeah. Otherwise, we could be spending the whole meeting going over that now.
That's fine.
All right, okay. About the next one, AP 6365, Technology and Information Resources. Is that you?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm Matthew Kiaming. I'm the co-chair of the District Technology Committee. One of the focuses for the District Technology Committee is improving the accessibility of information technology resources we have at the college. And so this administrative procedure is basically standard language that the Chancellor's Office has recommended and actually said this is legally required.
Right.
Our purchasing office is actually using this in contracts right now, so this AP basically codifies the effort.
Does that have to go through with the approval process in the their shared governance groups or not?
This was brought last spring. No?
No, this doesn't have to? That's what Ms. Colrose is saying. Dr.
Yeah,
Foster?
I mean, have you met with the committee,
With,
the district technology committee to?
yes, this was developed in the committee and approved last March. But-
Through
What-
16, 17.
Okay, what faculty were present, do you remember?
Dave Evans?
Dave Evans may have joined.
Lon Chong.
Lon from counseling.
Okay. It's just that the membership is in flux this semester. I think we have a new chair and, right?
Correct.
And, okay. Have you met with the new people at all? 'Cause they've been asking me.
Masood is the new co-chair,
Yeah.
and I've reached out to him twice to coordinate the first
Okay,
meeting that we
great.
haven't
Okay.
been
Okay,
in touch yet.
thank
So,
you.
what are we doing with this now?
There are
Ms.
two
Colrose?
options.
Yes.
This committee can choose to approve it and move it forward, or they can decide they want to send it out to the shared governance groups for review and bring it back for a second reading in November.
So if we move forward, then it becomes enforceable immediately. We can post it. Because it's an
Actually,
AP.
we're
It's an
already
AP.
doing it.
Okay, all right. Are we already doing it without the approval?
Yeah.
We're
So then,
codifying the language. It's up to you.
okay. So let me hear the pleasure of the group. Lenore?
This is actually an AIP, getting this procedure hammered out. and
Okay,
completed.
this one about our AIP.
Yeah, this is what
So
our.
we're getting done. I see Dr. Olivo is going like that, so.
And
Right.
you said it's codified language, right, Crystal?
Well, we're codifying in this AP, but our purchasing department is already doing it.
Because it's law. It's the law. Because it is the law.
Right,
Right.
okay.
So,
So we should probably move ahead and approve it.
so what do I hear a motion?
A motion to approve.
I
Is- All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we're good with this. Matt, I forgot, you requested to go first, right, because you have to leave.
Correct.
So what is the other topic that you needed to go over?
The other one was board policy and administrative procedure 3720.
Computer network use?
Correct.
Okay. That came to us before.
That's
Correct.
right, that's the second reading.
So what are we going to do now?
Yeah, so this is basically the board policy and administrative procedure on appropriate use of computer and network resources. Last time this was updated was in 2000, so 17 years ago.
Yes.
Although a lot has changed, this procedure hasn't significantly changed, but we've basically put in some language about protecting your passwords, not sharing passwords, incidental personal use is acceptable, whereas the district computer resources are primary.
What does incidental personal use mean?
So if you're at your computer and you want to do a Google search or go book a trip, that's fine. If you
Yeah.
want to use the district's computer systems to host your business website, that's not okay.
Okay. Is it spelled out in that?
So we occasionally, we work with our team to sometimes come across a wireless access point, for example, that is possibly circumventing some of the security restrictions that we have, and we really need to update this procedure to have something that pointed to safety.
Well, then let me hear what you just said. You said that a wireless, right, router that can circumvent the card. What if somebody uses his or her cell phone, but through our Wi-Fi, and to conduct that business? Is that acceptable?
If it's still through our network, it's still under the rules.
How would you know that?
Because so if you
How would
turn
you
on
know?
your Wi-Fi and you get onto our network,
Yeah.
our network is our highway. So to exit our highway and get out to the rest of the internet, you're going to go through our firewall.
How would you know that?
The firewall just controls everything out of our network. So if you put your Wi-Fi on your phone, you are now on our highway, and the exit ramp goes to
So you
our
can
firewall.
monitor that?
We don't specifically monitor.
No, but can you
there's
monitor that? Let's say, take the case of Dr. Story.
rules. Yeah,
He takes his Wi-Fi, he takes his phone,
sure.
he connects to our Wi-Fi,
Okay.
to run his, let's say, his private tax business?
Yeah, we would see it and we can.
Will you see it?
I'll hire you.
Yeah, if we wanted to, it would, all traffic in and out of the district is captured.
Would you know that it was Dr. Story? Would you know that it was Dr. Story doing that?
Gary, go ahead.
Okay, I hear a lot of alarms going off. What Matthew is trying to say is that we have a gatekeeper, so to speak, where any traffic goes out, we could see that the traffic is leaving here.
Yeah, but you do not know where it is leaving from.
But we know that it's coming from us. We kind of know maybe. Okay, let me back up a little bit. Each time you go onto your wireless device, it's assigned a specific number on your phone.
Yes.
So when that number is assigned, then therefore that's the key to the traffic, to the highway, so to speak.
Yeah.
So the gatekeeper basically could see what number that is on your phone.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yes, but we can't see if it's Dr. Story.
That's what I'm saying. So therefore your policy. How is that different from somebody? You just said somebody's circumventing that by putting a Wi-Fi over there. How is that different?
To go further, there's that number that's assigned.
Yeah.
There, in some cases, we can't actually trace it to the specific person that's using.
Oh, then you have to go through forensics for that.
No,
we don't have the capacity.
So one of the
Does this say that?
yeah, I think part of the procedure stipulates that level of investigation needs to be authorized by the college president, and that's not something we do on an incidental basis.
No, we don't.
So I don't. The policy was actually made in a way not to make it convenient for a casual investigation to happen. It really needs to be authorized by the president. But if the question is, are there security controls in our network, and can we do certain audits if necessary, we do have to have that in place, because if something malicious is happening on the network, we're going to be asked what's happening, what's causing it, and we need to have that logging available, and that's not uncommon.
Okay, one good example is that just recently we received a notification saying that someone on campus was streaming a movie that's being in the movie theater. And so basically what I have to do is find out if it's happening and just block it.
Right.
I don't know who it is, where it came from, but I just know it came from the campus.
Right.
And so we can block it. So I guess from that sense, using the Dr. Storty example, if he's doing something, we can block it, but it takes a lot more to find out exactly who.
Right.
Like Matthew said, basically what he's asking for is that if it gets to that point, it'll require authorization from the
now,
district.
what do we have to do with this policy now? It is here for a second reading.
Vote on it.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I move.
Move to approve it as it is?
Yes, approve it.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? You abstain? Okay, that's fine, all right, so we have one abstention, all right? And now what do we do with this now?
Two things. The
Yeah.
BP will move forward to the Board of Trustees and the AP will get posted for that.
Can we post the board, the AP before the BP
Yes,
is?
'cause there's a current BP that exists.
Okay, all right.
May I ask a quick question,
Yes.
Gary? When if hypothetically, if you block that, then at least, is there a way that that person is aware that you've now violated something, we've caught it and blocked it?
I don't think the person will know that.
But they, I mean,
The person will never know
That's
that.
actually a good
if they try
example.
to do it again and say this, you can't do this? No?
Even in those cases, we don't spend a lot of time trying to find the person that broke
We
it.
just block it, that's it.
Our concern is blocking
Right.
it so people don't break the rule.
Well, whether the people are losing money or because their business, that's none of our business. We just, cut you, that's
I
it.
tell you that it's blocked.
Yeah, we'll just cut you. Are you doing any business like that, Ms. Chapman?
I don't care for movies. Watch movies.
All right, so Mr. Cameron, anything else?
That is all.
Okay, let's go back now to shared governance, BP 3000, new item. Ms. Colrose.
It's just up for review.
Okay.
Most of the APs associated with this I've already sent out to the appropriate groups, they've been approved. But this one hasn't been reviewed since 2008, I really didn't make any substantial changes to the language.
Okay,
But this one would need to go back out
Okay.
to the constituent groups and come back for a second reading in November.
okay, so everybody, all the groups here will be taking this one to their constituents and then we'll bring it back, all right? Number 5, BPAP 5040, student records, directory information and privacy.
Well, the good news is I have somebody here to talk about it,
All
I
right,
think.
and that's Dr. Olivo?
No,
and
that's
Susan.
Ah, okay, Ms.
Director.
Breaker, come on.
Director of A&R.
All right,
Susan has extensive experience in this area. Right, Susan?
Sure. Yes.
so what are we,
Basically, the policy and administrative procedures were in pretty good shape. The changes that I made for the most part were simply aligning with the current recommendations of the
Okay.
CCLC template.
all right. So
This
then we're
is-
just saying we're aligning what
this
we
is
have
the
with that,
BP,
okay?
So, for instance, in this portion, I made sure that we identified the appropriate position, the superintendent
Uh-huh.
president, that was one thing. The second paragraph, superintendent president may direct the implementation of appropriate safeguards, et cetera, is specifically in the CCLT template, so I added that.
Okay.
And then the last paragraph defines our directory information.
Mhm.
And I haven't varied from the CCLC template. There was an original consideration to expand this definition
Mhm.
to include more information, and that's very expressly discouraged by CCLC. They have a paragraph on the template itself that recommends that directory information be kept very strict and succinct.
Mhm, mhm.
So I've essentially observed that recommendation. I reworded what we had a bit because essentially the way our language read, we could only approve degrees and awards
Mhm.
for students who were participating student athletes.
Mhm.
And that's not the intent of the language, and that's not how the CCLC template is written. So I reworded it so that our directory information allows us to release the program of study, dates of attendance, degrees and awards received, most recent previous institution attended by any student, and participation in officially sanctioned vocational or athletic events. And then if the student is an athlete, the information also includes height, weight, and age.
Okay.
Haven't expanded it. I did not include email address, I did not include student's address, things that are permissible under directory information, but I've left it very, very
Yeah,
brief
right.
and strictly defined.
What are we supposed to do with this now?
Well, this is a board policy, so it has to go to the board.
But before that, does it have to go to all the constituent groups since it is a new item?
I would recommend that it does so that they're well
Okay.
informed about
Alright.
it. Because I know from my area, this is very important because I get public information
Mhm.
requests and I have to provide student data, so I
Okay.
love that Susan spelled it out for me.
Right, okay.
But yes, I think this needs
So
to
this,
go out
so this will go out and then we'll come back for a second reading?
in November.
All right. Next one, AP 5045, student records, challenging content and access. Ms. Breaker.
AP 5045, again, I revised some of the contact information. I added one section that was missing from
Okay.
our AP that has to do with the specific right of a student to inspect and review his own records.
Okay.
So item number 1 under this AP is.
Do they have that right under the law? To review their,
Students?
uh,
Oh, yes, very definitely.
all the record that we have on them,
Oh, yeah, we've
they
dealt
can
with one
request
since
to
I've been here.
review everything at Chapel?
Sure.
I thought
Anything
that was
that's
not-
defined as a student record. Yes, they certainly can. It's a process, and we've dealt with one since I've been here. So I did add that section so that we have the information defined. And then under item number 2, I changed the heading, just to be a little clearer, the right to challenge the content of those records. And again, per the CCLC template, corrected contact information essentially, but I did add one definition in the, I don't know what the number of the paragraph is, but the top paragraph on this page, if the employee is not presently employed. This has to do with involving an employee
Uh-huh.
who's being questioned about information in a student record. So I did add the template's recommendation of action when an employee is no longer employed by the district.
Okay.
Who do we do? Who do we contact? And I believe the only other change I made to this AP was to move information about the access log at the very end of this document from AP 5040 to AP 5045 as per the CCLC template.
That's interesting.
It was not, the language wasn't changed, I just moved
Okay.
it.
So the same thing here, we take that back?
Yes, and just a reminder, I believe that this needs to be in place with this wording for federal compliance, financial aid, and for grants.
And how soon should that be?
So we'll need to bring this back in November as long
Okay.
as we're in the process, but we
Alright.
cannot delay.
Okay.
And if your constituents need a concrete example,
Mhm.
you know, our former students are applying for federal government
Right.
jobs, state jobs, to
Uh-huh.
be police officers and whatnot. So we do have agents coming to our department
Right.
requesting information about student records.
Yes.
Very good, all right.
It's done.
So till 9, so we will end this meeting in 6 minutes at
Mhm.
most, okay? Number 7, review shared governance guidelines, committee membership and terms of service.
Oh, sorry, that's me.
Uh-huh.
So the last time we met, we had a discussion about, standing committee membership and, inactivity by members. It's clearly outlined in section 4 of what should happen, but each one of the standing committees seems to have different language with regards to inactive members. What I'd like this committee to agree to is that we just abide by the language in section 4, and that it is applied to all of the standing committees that are not covered by an AP, and that's 8 of the 11. 4, okay.
Thank you,
So
Susan.
section 4 very clearly states what happens if somebody that is inactive. So it says that number 8, if the selected representatives, actually I think it starts in 6. Selected representatives who miss 2 consecutive meetings without notifying the chair will be considered inactive, and their position on college council will be considered vacant. We want to change that language to college council and or standing committee. Everybody, okay?
So this one will go out to?
No, this group covers
Oh,
this.
okay,
Mhm.
okay.
And then, so that we do that all the way through, the chair has the sole authority to remove the representative that is inactive, so that should probably say co-chair, chair, or co-chair.
Mhm.
And then for the last one is that if it's during the academic year, a current appointee becomes the chair or co-chair, will notify the representative constituent group of the vacancy. The constituency group then has 1 month to appoint a new representative to serve the remainder of the term of the original appointee, and will notify the chair if they want, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So we just want this to cover all of the standing committees not covered by an AP,
Mhm.
and that's 8 of the 11.
A motion to move forward on that?
So move.
Second,
Second.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
There's one more thing.
Mhm.
The other thing is we don't have any language in here about the standing committees creating subcommittees or sub-work groups for them. So I want to know if you'd like me to draft language, and then do you want college council to approve the formation of a subcommittee of a standing committee, or do you believe that the standing committee should just do that themselves?
Standing committee.
All right, so I will draft language as such and bring it back in November, and then we'll approve this over time.
All right. I move that we adjourn the meeting at this point, to give everybody an opportunity to get back to their respective duty station, as we are about to start the drill in about 6 minutes, I believe, right? All right. Okay.